many people have thought processes, and we find ourselves at the doorstep of a whole new year. Another year that I believe is full of, to quote myself, more of our abnormal normality. And what waits ahead, no one could have predicted COVID through 2020. The things that have shaken our world, the threats of war between major nations, the COVID outbreak, the collapse of economies. It's been a difficult year, but sadly, more people today are living in so much fear and anxiety and trepidation of what may unfold in the coming year. And I ask myself, why is that our mentality? Now, this message might sound a little discouraging, but it'll finish with a major encouragement. I seem to remember certain people bidding a not so fond farewell to 2019. If you remember back in 2019, we were in the midst of an incredibly devastating drought. Our central farmers, I see Janelle up there, Janelle and Alan have been tremendously involved in sending out support packages and networking with other organisations to ease the drought, the victims of the drought, the farmers, the people. And the rains weren't coming. And then we had the cataclysmic bushfires that seemed to have just ravaged the whole east coast of Australia. And then we had economic disasters, one piling on top of the other. And so people bid 2019 a very unfond farewell. Surely 2020 would be better. Well, we find ourselves saying farewell to 2020, and I hear people saying the same thing. Surely 2021 can't be any worse, because throughout 2020 we've had the advent of COVID-19, and as I've just said, a lot of other difficult curveballs that have been thrown at people. Isn't this a wonderfully encouraging message this morning? You should be full of hope and smiling back at me this morning saying, this is just wonderful. Yeah, you doomsday prophet, you. But I think the reason we have such a heaviness about the prospects of the coming year is because we're continually bombarded with bad news stories on our media 24/7, from the TV, from radio, social media, social networks. Everywhere we're picking up is just this negativity. Actually, it almost feels like our lives and our minds are in some form of emotional lockdown. Does anybody ever feel that way, that you don't know what's coming next, and so you're always destabilised? And this constant media barrage is meant to sidetrack and even hinder those who love Jesus Christ. But the thing is, because my Bible says he is new every morning, and great is his faithfulness to who? All generations. I want you to say that with me. Great is the Lord's faithfulness to all generations. You know, there are people that come and people go, but the Lord is faithful yesterday, today, and forever. And no matter what the world tells us is going on, he is still in control. And this message is to start 2021 with a proclamation, a declaration of hope in the midst of the world looking at hopeless situations. The church must never be overcome by the world. Jesus said, be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. And so that promise lives in you and I. And you will walk away from this place today, and you will have heard a message, and you perhaps will be changed, or you will think about it. But this message is seed sowing, because I'm telling you, trials will come. Situations will come upon us. More curveballs will come. That's why we came together at exactly midnight on December 31st and prayed through the new year and took communion and prayed the blood of Christ over it. There were 10 of us here praying over our city, praying for salvations, praying for our school, praying for our politicians, because I believe there's no greater thing for the church to do than when times are tough is to rise up in Christ in those times. He is new every morning and faithful to all generations. But many confess their faith in Jesus Christ when things are going well. It reminds me, for example, of a shopping trolley. You walk along with your shopping trolley and you say, okay, God, if you give me this, and this, and I'll put that in my trolley, I'll do this, and this. It's not about that. It's about God has already given Our trolley is overflowing. We should take that trolley of overflowing abundance and give it to those who are destitute and poor. And I'm not talking about toilet rolls, if you get what I'm coming from. But when we have an abundance in Christ, no matter how poverty-stricken the world would seem, the church has always got something to give. Because for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, no matter how destitute things become, no matter how much the enemy persecutes the church in China, no matter how much we see the enemy seem to raise up a standard, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. I've heard a statistic that the fastest growing Christian population in the world at the moment is in Iran, which is probably the most Muslim-based country in the world. Again, it's clear to me that public health and the world economy seem to take up every moment of our lives in Australia. Would you say that's true? The economy and public health? Yeah. I could switch this message and do something else if you like. But I want to preach on Psalm 37 this morning. Because to me it's very disturbing that our mindsets can be so easily distracted because of the situations and circumstances that are surrounding us, when we are called to keep our eyes fixed on him who owns this world, who created it for his good pleasure. For those of us who've truly loved Jesus Christ and are fearful of his great power and bewildered by the fact that so many turn their back on him. Friends, no matter what happens in 2021, Jesus Christ will still be on the throne. He is in control, and no matter what the world system says, governments will come and governments will go. Wars will come and go. Economies will rise and fall. But Jesus Christ remains the same yesterday, today and forever. I know many are just hoping and existing for a better outcome in 2021. But what if it's not a better outcome? What if it's not a better outcome, guys? Can you imagine what it must have been like for the children of Israel walking 40 years in the wilderness? God delivers them from the hand of the Egyptians and says, I will give you a promised land. And so they follow Moses, and away they go, and they come to the Red Sea. And suddenly they've got the chariots of Pharaoh bearing down upon them, the sea that's impassable there before them. They're in a tight situation, yet they've come out of captivity to go to a promised land. He promised he'd get them to the other side. And that's the promise of God over me. So there's one great lesson right there. He will get us through them if we trust him. Verse 24. Though they stumble, they will never what? Though they stumble, they will never fall. For God holds them by the hand. What a wonderful, wonderful thing. How many times will you and I stumble throughout 2021, friends? Not counting today. I've already done it. I remember when my kids, David knows what it was like. But if we're holding his hand, he will never let us fall. I remember what it was like with my 3 kids when Ben was a little boy. I would make sure that if I was crossing the road or going anywhere, he was holding my hand. And sometimes kids trip over their own feet and they stumble. But my hand as a father held him. And then Chris came along. And then I started to hold his hand. But Chris at a very young age seemed to have very big hands. And he'd want to pull away and go and do his thing. But even today, up until even 2 nights ago, he came and stood beside me and he grabbed me by the hand. And it's a big hand, strong hand. But the thing was, it reminded me again of what a father does with his children. Takes them by the hand to protect them, to lead them, to guide them, so they don't stumble and fall or walk into darkness or to dark places. I would hold my children's hands while they played and they danced. Just so they wouldn't fall and hurt themselves. You see, friends, no matter how old and mature we think we are, answers but doesn't even know the question. Jesus Christ is the gift of God to all mankind. And part 2 of verse 26 says, and their children are a blessing. Look at the end of verse 25. And their children, or their children,